Padre Pio often said that some souls carry their illusions with them even after death, and this was exactly what he witnessed when he saw the soul condemned by pride. The soul appeared before him not in darkness, but in a strange, blinding glow, almost like a self-made spotlight. It wasn't the light of heaven, nor the warmth of divine love. It was the cold, artificial shine of self-glorification, the kind of light a person builds when they spend a lifetime praising themselves. This soul had constructed a throne of ego long before it left the world, and now it stood in the center of it, unable to step away. During life, this person had believed they were above others, above correction, above humility, above repentance. They never allowed anyone close because they feared appearing weak. They never admitted mistakes because they believed they could never make them. And so, even after death, their soul reflected those same patterns. Padre Pio described how every time divine light tried to touch the soul, it recoiled, as if truth itself was an insult to its imagined greatness. The soul was surrounded by symbols of its own pride. Achievements it exaggerated, praise it demanded, admiration it chased. But all of it appeared hollow and fading, like reflections in broken glass. The soul kept trying to gather those pieces, as if clinging to them would restore its dignity. Yet nothing stayed in place. Nothing gave comfort. Padre Pio said the saddest part was this: the soul didn't realize it was suffering. It believed it was still standing tall, still honored, still important. Only heaven could see how trapped it really was, imprisoned inside the very glory it had once worshipped. Padre Pio explained that pride is unique among sins because it blinds a person not only in life, but even after death. When he saw this soul condemned by pride, he witnessed the exact moment its illusion of greatness began to crumble. The soul initially appeared confident, almost regal, as if expecting honor from heaven itself. It stood tall, shoulders lifted, as though waiting for applause. But heaven does not bend to human ego. In the presence of divine truth, every mask falls away, and that is what Padre Pio saw in unraveling. The soul's self-made crown began to crack. The image of perfection it clung to, the persona it built for admiration, started dissolving like dust in a strong wind. It wasn't punished by flames or chains. It was punished by truth. The truth exposed the emptiness behind its achievements, the selfish motives behind its kindness, the arrogance hidden behind its confidence. As the truth drew closer, the soul trembled. Not out of humility, but out of fear of being ordinary, fear of being seen as flawed, fear of losing the superiority it had lived for. Pride had become its identity, and without it, the soul didn't know who it was. Padre Pio said the moment of realization was the soul's greatest torment. It saw how many opportunities it had wasted, how many relationships it had damaged, and how many moments of grace it had rejected simply because acknowledging them required humility. The soul didn't cry in repentance, it cried in humiliation. But humiliation is not the same as humility. The truth didn't crush the soul. It simply revealed it. And for the proud, revelation is agony. Padre Pio described the soul's next moment with a depth that chilled those who heard him. After its illusions were stripped away, the soul expected mercy, but not the kind that transforms. It wanted mercy without surrender, forgiveness without humility, heaven without bending its knee. This was the prison pride had built, a cell with no bars, yet impossible to escape because the soul refused to bow low enough to walk out. He said pride creates an inner gravity that pulls a soul inward, collapsing it into itself. The more the soul tried to justify its life, defend its choices, or cling to its reputation, the heavier this inward pull became. It wasn't dragged downward by demons. It fell under the weight of its own ego. Pride had become a chain made of thoughts, excuses, and self-worship. Padre Pio saw the soul trying to look upward, toward the light of grace, but each time it raised its gaze, it flinched. The light felt unbearable, not because it burned, but because it revealed. Heaven's light required honesty. It required truthfulness. And truthfulness required humility, something the soul had never practiced in life. In this moment, Padre Pio understood something profound. No one rejects heaven because heaven is unwelcoming. Souls reject heaven because they cannot let go of themselves. The soul struggled, twisting and turning as if suffocating in a shrinking space. But the walls were not closing in, the soul was collapsing inward, unable to accept that it was not the center of the universe. Padre Pio said pride does not scream. It suffocates. It silences itself in the echo chamber of its own self-importance, sealing its fate with stubbornness, not rebellion. Padre Pio described the next scene as one of the most heartbreaking revelations he had ever been allowed to witness. When the soul, crushed under the weight of its own pride, was finally brought before the presence of God's mercy, something unexpected happened. Mercy did not appear as judgment, punishment, or anger, but as a radiant, overwhelming invitation. It was a light that extended warmth, not condemnation. A love that asked nothing but honesty. A presence that called softly, "Come home." But instead of drawing closer, the soul recoiled. Padre Pio explained that God's mercy is like an open door, not a chain that pulls. It invites, but never forces. And for a soul imprisoned by pride, that invitation can feel more terrifying than hell itself. For in the presence of perfect love, pride feels naked. It can no longer justify itself. It can no longer hide behind excuses. It must admit it was wrong. It must surrender. The soul before Padre Pio trembled as if exposed by a mirror that reflected every hidden truth, its lies, its vanity, its arrogance, and the countless moments in which it chose self over love. The more God's mercy shone, the more the soul twisted in discomfort, as though the light was peeling away every mask it had ever worn. Padre Pio said the soul cried out not from punishment, but from shame. Shame so deep it shook the very core of its existence. God did not accuse it, the soul accused itself. God did not condemn it, the soul condemned itself. Then Padre Pio revealed the most tragic part. Mercy was offered, repeatedly, gently, without limit. But each offer required humility. Each invitation required the soul to drop its pride, to whisper even the tiniest yes, and the soul could not. It would rather flee from love than bow before it. In that moment, Padre Pio realized that hell is not the absence of God's mercy, it is the refusal to accept it. Padre Pio said the final vision was the most sobering of all. When the soul turned away from God's mercy, the separation was not a dramatic fall into flames, it was a quiet drifting, a slow and sorrowful distancing from the light it refused to accept. There were no chains pulling it downward, no angels forcing it away. The soul simply moved toward the only place that matched its inner state, a realm where pride could exist without ever bowing, where the soul could remain the center of its own universe forever. But this freedom was agony. Padre Pio described the soul entering an existence where no love could reach it, not because love wasn't offered, but because pride had sealed every door from the inside. Isolation became its eternal companion. Every memory of rejected mercy played like an echo that never faded. The soul understood, too late, that God had not abandoned it. It had abandoned God. There was no joy in its independence, only an endless emptiness. Pride had promised strength, control, importance. Instead, it delivered loneliness so deep that it could not be measured in time or space. And the greatest torment was knowing the truth. A single moment of humility, a single "Lord, help me," could have saved it. Padre Pio said souls are not lost because God refuses them, but because they refuse God. And for a soul ruled by pride, that refusal becomes its eternal destiny, a self-chosen exile from the very love it was created for.